Way more cards to cover. Let's go. 5 more classes. Let's take a look at all these class cards for Fortune the Barrens. The Madman. Starting with a spicy one. Priest Serena Bloodfeather. 2 mana, 1/1 Battlecry. Choose an enemy minion, steal attack and health from it until this has more. Regis asked in the card reveal stream, I don't have enough IQ points to decide, to work out the math. I was like, okay, I got you. I figured out the formula. In other words, Battlecry, choose an enemy minion, steal half of its stats, rounded up. Excellent deal, by the way. Suppose your opponent's got a 4/12. Then, it's just even numbers. That means you steal half the stats, 2 attack, 6 health. So Serena becomes 3/7, target becomes 2/6. She's even great early game. Your opponent's got a 3/3. You play Serena Bloodfeather. Because the halving rounds in your favor, you're stealing 2/2 from that. So Serena Bloodfeather would enter play as a 3/3. Your opponent's 3/3 becomes a 1/1. Also, if your opponent has a 1 health minion, she will kill that minion because the opponent's health minion will go down to 0. So pretty flexible. I think she's actually good enough to see play in a lot of decks as just a efficient, very efficient sometimes, minion to play. Devouring Plague. Note that the art is not Serena getting wrecked by a random low level troll. I will defend you, Serena. 3 mana spell, lifesteal, deal 4 damage, randomly split among all enemy minions. Yeah, 3 mana to deal 4 damage just isn't a lot of value out there. It's flexible, but just a little pricey for what it does. Soothsayer's Caravan. 2 mana, 1/3. At the start of your turn, copy a spell from your opponent's deck to your hand. So, like all the other Caravans, I'm not just blanket stating, say, lol Caravan, it's bad. This is one of the better effects, but the unfortunate thing is Priest is in one of the less good positions to defend such a card. Basically, I think for Caravan to work, if it were to work, you would need to be playing a tempo deck, one that was getting a 1-drop out so that it could protect the Caravan. Yeah, in a control deck, which is probably the decks that you'll want to copy spells from your opponent's deck and add them to your hand, or in a value deck, you probably won't have the 1-drop to protect the 2-drop. And you probably will not want to be trying to high roll for getting the Caravan on exactly turn 2. Power Word Fortitude is a really interesting direction that Priest is going in this expansion. 8 mana, using quotes, gives a minion +3/+5, costs 1 less for each spell in your hand. Note that this spell does count itself, so it will always cost at most 7 mana. I think if the card costs 3, it is fairly good. Now here's the problem. I think it's rare for a Priest deck to want to run a lot of spells and is not a control deck. And control decks tend not to run minions that want to battle on the board. Even if you had the option to put a 3 mana +3/+5 into your control deck, I think you probably wouldn't take it. So given that requirement of having 4 spells in your hand, makes this card indeed seem rather bad. Void Flare is similar in that it's 4 mana 3/4 Battlecry. For each spell in your hand, deal 1 damage to a random enemy minion. I don't know how many spells you can generally count on having. Let's suppose an Optimistic. You count this as you play it on average, you have 5 spells in your deck, in your hand rather. Deal 5 damage to random enemy minions. That is better than Dinomatic, which was a good card. Yeah, if you're playing Control Priest, I could see running that Void Flare. I think 5 spells in your hand isn't that absurd. A lot of cards revealed for Rogue, and one card got a lot of murmurings. It's the legendary mercenary, Scab's Cutter Butter. 4 mana 3/3 combo, the next 2 cards you play this turn cost 3 less. Certainly seems scary with the coin. Now it is rare that you're going to have exactly 2 cards that do cost 3 in your hand to go with Scab's Cutter Butter. But, even if you cast 2 2-drops, it does seem pretty good to have a 0 mana 3/3. Shadow Step with Scabs is interesting in that you don't want to play Scabs and then immediately Shadow Step Scabs because otherwise you would burn one of the 3 cost discounts. But what you can do is you can play Scabs and then you play 2 cards and then you Shadow Step Scabs. And then the Shadow Step does effectively store up 4 mana worth of savings, because next time you can play Scab's Cutterbar for 2 mana and get a discount of 6 on your next 2 cards. Next, Rogue does have a mini internal synergy here with poisons. Swinetusk Shank, 3 mana 2/2. After you play a poison, gain +1 durability. Before you remark on how bad the card is, let's take a look at all the synergy cards. Apothecary Hellbrim, 4 mana 3/2 legendary, Battlecry and Death Rattle, add a random poison to your hand. And before you comment on how bad that card is, let's take a look at what all the poisons could be. Silverleaf Poison, 2 mana, give your weapon, after your hero attacks, draw a card, which looks like it would be a great card to put on a high durability weapon. You have your old Paralytic Poison, give your weapon +1 attack, and your hero is immune while attacking, which looks like it would be great on a high durability weapon. And you have Nitro Boost Poison, which is getting nerfed from 1 to 2 mana, but still seems like a great card to have. And finally, you have Deadly Poison, which is just a nice general poison. You know it, you love it. With all that knowledge, let's take a look at Swinetusk Shank. Let's assume that this is a 3 mana 2/4. You're getting the immune effect potentially up to 4 times. You're drawing potentially 3 or 4 cards with a Silverleaf Poison. Deadly Poison is giving +6 or 8 damage, and the Nitro Boost is similar in giving +6 or +8 damage to the weapon. With Apothecary Hellbrim actually providing decent value, because it seems like all of those cards do work well on a high durability weapon. It's a 4 mana 3/2 that draws you 2 cards that you actually want. Maybe this is the Valley Rogue style, with a weapon in which you're immune, get rid of a bunch of minions and not lose health for it. Draw a bunch of the cards with your Silverleaf Poison, do a lot of damage alongside your Deadly Poison and Nitro Boost Poison. Maybe that'll work. Rogue's getting Efficient Octobot, 2 mana 1/4, Frenzy, reduce the cost of cards in your hand by 1. Seems not really fitting to any particular rogue archetype that I can see right now. I'm not entirely sure what rogue deck wants to reduce the cost of cards in their hand by 1, and probably not worth like playing a card and then trying to like probably use something to frenzy it, because you're going to have to use something. It's a lot of effort is what I'm saying. Field Contact, interesting card, 3 mana 3/2. After you play a Battlecry or combo card, draw a card. Cheapest way to activate this is with Penflinger. Repeatable activations, play some 0-cost spells, use more Penflingers. Perhaps it could be the baseline for some sort of Penflinger style miracle deck. Now worth mentioning is this card does give you potentially a lot of cards, and perhaps you actually needed to insert cheap cards into it, which is what the Efficient Octobot does. It's a little too early to dismiss the Efficient Octobot, especially with another card which looks like a value generation machine. Very difficult to evaluate what clearly look to be combo pieces. And I'm ending with the best card for Rogue here. Maybe actually better than Scabs. Actually maybe better. It's Wicked Stab, which is Scabs stabbing someone. 2 mana, deal 2 damage. Upgrades when you have 5 mana. Okay, wait for it. For 2 mana, you're just dealing 4 damage straight up. No combo required. I think Wicked Stab rank 2 is going to be a very commonly cast to deal 4, which is quite good. If you do make it to turn 10, sometimes you need to just keep your burn until the end. In fact, often you do that. Perhaps you just wait a few turns, get to turn 10, and then unload your Wicked Stabbery on your opponent, and 2 mana deal 6 is quite a lot of damage. All I can say is good thing Eviscerate rotated out. It enabled more card designs like Wicked Stab to be created, because Wicked Stab plus Eviscerate would have been absolutely ridiculous. For Shaman, seeing the rest of the cards really gives you a lot more faith in the earlier cards they revealed. The Murlocs are real. South Coast Chieftain, 2 mana 3/2 Murloc, Battlecry if you control another Murloc, deal 2 damage, which is an amazingly tempo-y card. This card is so good, it's possible that Murloc Tiny Fan actually sees play, which by the way is now in the core set. Certainly what you want to do is you want to start off with a 1-cost Murloc. Unfortunately, they got your back with what looks to be a really, really strong 1-cost Murloc enabler. It's Spawnpool Forager. 1 mana 1/2 Murloc. With Death Rattle, summon a 1/1 Tiny Fin. 1 mana 1/2 summon a Murloc. So Sticky Murloc. Very, very difficult to actually remove this card, which means that your 2 mana Murloc will probably go off if you have the Bondpool Forager. Here's another Murloc card. It's Tiny Fin's Caravan. 2 mana 1/3 at the start of your turn, draw a Murloc. Fuel for your deck, but that does require like passing up your very strong turn 2 options in order to play a 1/3. And I think that's just not a good idea. It seems like when you have a Murloc deck, you need to keep that tempo up so you can finish them with nothing can stop us. Here's the elemental cards. So we'll start off with the baseline. A nice solid Earth Revenant, 4 mana 2/6 taunt, battlecry, deal 1 damage to all enemy minions. Not much to say about it, it's just like a sturdy, good defensive card. Where it's really good is it sets up the following turn. The 5 mana elemental, Lilypad Lurker. 5 mana 4/5 battlecry, if you played an elemental last turn, transform an enemy minion into a 0/1 frog with taunt. That's a hex that comes with a 4/5 for 1 more mana. Definitely the strongest reason to be playing an elemental deck, which looks like it'll be some sort of value or control deck. And an option for your elemental deck would be Arid Stormer. 3 mana 2/5 battlecry, if you played an elemental last turn, gain Rush and Wind Fury. It might be too small a card to be running in a value or control elemental deck, but sure looks pretty good to have a 3 mana 2/5 Rush Wind Fury. The requirement's a little bit steep, and I'm not sure you can get this out consistently on turn 3 with what we currently have for elementals early on. Warlock actually has a fascinating mechanic this expansion, which is destroying your entire deck. Altar of Fire is an amazing card revealed by Tice.
Hello, it is Salesman Tice here. Are you tired of being tired and you just want new cards? Well, I got a new card for you. Altar of Fire, a 1 mana Warlock card. Destroy the top 3 cards of each deck. Altar of Fire, the card that makes not a card, the card. Did I sell you? Well, that's what I tried.
This is a very, very narrow card. One, you want to speed up the destruction of your own deck, but this seems like gross overkill in doing so. So I think the main thing is as a combo buster. Your opponent's playing an OTK deck or a combo deck. You alter fire, sometimes you destroy their win condition, and then they can't win. You're probably playing this though in the actual deck that wants to destroy its own deck so that you can get your good stuff, because combo decks are not that big a percentage of the meta. But what is your big payoff if you just destroy your deck? Well, you've seen Bloodshard Bristleback already, which has a good payoff if you have 10 or fewer cards. Barrens Scavenger also is quite good if you have 10 or fewer cards. 6 mana 6/6 with taunt costs 1 while your deck has 10 or fewer cards. Yeah, I'm actually very excited to play this card. Not with Altar of Fire, but just in a general control Warlock deck. You'll probably get pretty low on cards through just normal play of tapping. And then late game, maybe you can play Draxus while you drop down a Barrens Scavenger. Niru Fireblade. 5 mana 5/5 battlecry. If your deck is empty, open a portal that fills your board with 3/2 imps each turn. So this is the big payoff to actually destroying your whole deck. Repeating wave of 3/2 imps. Unlike Nomi, it is quite a lot easier to deal with a board full of 2 health minions. And the thing with Nomi is you really needed to kill your opponent rather quickly after, you destroyed your whole deck because you're taking fatigue. So slowly gaining advantages over the opponent with 3/2 imps while you're taking a bunch of damage from fatigue is probably not the best plan. I think Niru Fireblade is playing a little too much with fire here. Little too slow of a win condition to kill your opponent with after you've killed your whole deck. You got your joke card for the Warlock, Apothecary's Caravan. 2 mana 1/3 at the start of your turn, summon a 1-cost minion from your deck. This is a legitimate Zoo deck card. Zoo is aiming to control your opponent's board from the beginning, so they actually have a chance at protecting their Apothecary's Caravan. And then it could summon something good, but it's just a little too much to rely on having Apothecary's Caravan. You have to draw it early, you have to miss drawing the 1-cost minions, you have to start with a 1-cost, and you have to hope your opponent isn't playing tempo and like already started off with a 1-drop as well. Because paying 2 mana for a 1/3 is just bad. In fact, if you played a lot of tempo matchups, you would know how bad playing a 1 mana 1/3 was, which frequently was at its worst against tempo decks. Now this card though looks very exciting for Zoo. Cabal Outfitter, 3 mana 3/3 Battle Cry, and Death Rattle. Give another random friendly minion +1/+1. That's so much better than Shattered Sun Cleric. Basically 3 mana 5/5. And that's quite good. In a Zoo deck, you're aiming to have a bunch of cards on the board, so you'll be able to buff stuff with a Cabal Outfitter if your deck is performing. And it's not just a 5/5, some of it is fast in that you're giving a card +1/+1 right now, which might give you a favorable trade. Great Zoo card. Warriors getting a number of cards revealed here. Overlord Saurfang. 7 mana 5/4, Battlecry, resurrect 2 friendly Frenzy minions, deal 1 damage to all other minions. A nice combo, of course. The cards that you resurrect immediately do something, guaranteed. The biggest effect seems to be Taraho Brave. That's a neutral 6 mana 4/8. Frenzy, destroy a random enemy minion. Which means that the turn that you play your Saurfang, you can, get the big value of play card, summon a few big cards, destroy a few of your opponent's minions. Big board swing. Seems like a cool finisher for a warrior. Stone Maul Anchorman. 5 mana 4/5, rush, frenzy, draw a card. If you assume that, you're gonna play this card and rush into something and not have it die because that's how you planned the turn, that's quite good. It's 5 mana 4/5 that draws you a card. And it's a pirate. Big pirate, by the way. Very solid, basic warrior card draw. But this is nothing when you compare it with what might be one of the strongest cards of the set. What is one of the strongest cards of the set? In fact, I'll just say that. Outrider's Axe. 4 mana 3/3, after your hero attacks and kills a minion, draw a card. Wow, what a card. The 4 mana 3/3 weapon stat line is already, reasonable. You tack on 3 card draws onto that, and that's ridiculous. I suppose the only downside to your control warrior deck, which is running this, or perhaps even tempo warrior, mid-range warrior, whatever, you'll probably just run it, is that you'll have to have one hard decision: do you play Sword Eater or Outrider's Axe? On turn 4, you probably still put both into your deck, and those are your 4 weapons. 2, sadly you can't put Kazakus into your warrior deck because your 4-drops are too good. Oh. Warrior also has a small hand buff theme. I'm not entirely sure where that's going in this particular set. The answer is probably nowhere. But we've got conditioning, 2 mana. Give minions in your hand +1/+1. Terrible rank 1 card. In rank 2, it's actually very beefy. 2 mana, give minions in your hand +2/+2. On turn 10, on 10 mana, 2 mana, give minions in your hand +3/+3. While that is a big payoff, it is a very, very slow payoff. And I'm not sure you're gonna need that when you have a bunch of cards that you've drawn with Outrider's Axe and Anchorman, though that is a combo, having a big hand and playing conditioning. Bulk Up is faster. It's 2 mana, give a random taunt minion in your hand +1/+1 and copy it. That's a lot of value. The card that you want to combo with Bulk Up was also revealed earlier. It's Mortian Elite. Decent baseline, but with the hand buffs, Mortian Elite certainly looks a lot better. And hey, your hero will certainly attack this turn when you play the Outrider's Axe on 4. These cards are all working really well together in Warrior. Just a question of, do you need to add the hand buffing on top of this? Or do you just simply play Mortian Elite, which is good enough by itself, and Outrider's Axe, and no need for the extra cherry on top of the hand buff, because that might just be overkill. You got Whirling Combatant, 4 mana 2/6, Battlecry and Frenzy, deal 1 damage to all other minions. Strong against one of the decks currently pretty popular in the format, the Stealth Rogue, which runs a lot of 1 health cards. You play the Whirling Combatant, you deal the 1 damage to everything, and they possibly are scared to play other stuff because this is one of the Frenzy cards that you don't want to activate immediately. Unless you want to deal 2 damage to all other minions. I think this is a cool tech card. It's if the meta falls into a lot of very small guys, you'll want this card. But if not, you won't want this card. Kind of similar to rank. Rank is a 4 mana, deal 2 damage to all minions, gain 2 armor for each destroyed. Not as strong as some of the other warrior clear options, but it does combo with Lord Barrow to potentially give you a lot of armor. And if the minions are small enough, you don't need to combo it with anything. You can just deal 2 damage to all minions. Aggro Smasher, a face smasher. And by face smasher, I mean a face smasher smashes the face ducks. You kill their minions while gaining a bunch of armor at the same time. Very dependent on the meta. Good news for those of you who are trying to learn vocabulary. Rank represents bitterness or resentfulness, especially when long-standing. It appears that this card is showing Rokara's long-standing hatred for the Alliance. I also just learned that it's pronounced Ranker. So wow, cool cards in Forge in the Barrens and a vocabulary lesson. That's some value. Stay tuned for the remaining neutral cards.